We acknowledge the first Australians as the traditional custodians of the continent, whose culture is the oldest living culture in human history. We pay our respects to elders, past, present and emerging, and we respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationship with the land. We extend our respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. They share the memories, traditions and hopes of the traditional ancestors with the new generations today and in the future. We would also like to thank them for looking after this land for thousands of years.
Good afternoon and welcome to our next session of our Earth Science Week programs today. Well, big thanks again goes out to Geoscience Australia for funding us today to enable us to do all of these amazing sessions for free. And we are very excited to have Megan here from Australian National Maritime Museum, who is going to be presenting our next session, which is looking at oceans, plastic and sustainability. So I'll hand over to Megan and I look forward to another great session.
All right, everyone. Hello and welcome. Let me just pop up my screen here. Perfect. All right. Well, welcome to the Australian National Maritime Museum. My name is Megan and I am a Digital Education Officer here, and I can't wait to chat to you guys all about ocean plastics. Just a few quick things before we get started is that through this session, I want to hear what you guys have to say. So if I ask you all a question, please feel free to pop your answers in the chat. I'll be able to see it, Karen will be able to see it, and we can have a bit of a discussion in the chat. Other students won't be able to see it, so you don't need to worry about them stealing your answers. If you're in a classroom, I just ask the teacher to help facilitate taking the answers from your class and popping them in there. Or if you're a homeschool student, you can just type it in yourself. If you guys have any questions for me, that's where we're going to use the Q&A. So if you have any questions for me, pop them in the Q&A and I'll be able to see them there, and we'll have time at the end, hopefully, to go into that, anything that I might have missed or skimmed over, pop them in there. And I do want to welcome you once again to the Australian National Maritime Museum. And I hope that you've either been here before or in the future, you might get a chance to visit. So the Australian National Maritime Museum is in the beautiful Darling Harbour, and ocean science and sustainability is so important to us because, as you can see, we are surrounded by water in the beautiful harbour, and Australia is surrounded by water. It's super important. And before I go any further, I do also want to reiterate the acknowledgement of country that we had at the start, and acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation as the traditional custodians of the Bamal, the earth, and the Badu, the waters on which I work and I'm talking to you from today. I also want to acknowledge all traditional custodians of the lands and waters throughout Australia and pay my respects to them and their cultures and to their elders past and present. And this is particularly relevant today because our First Nations people across Australia have an incredible connection to the land and the water and the oceans around their particular homes and their lands. So it's really important for us to think about them. And we'll talk a little bit more about some Torres Strait Islander artists towards the end of our session. So, talking about ocean science and sustainability, we have a big issue, and that is pollution. So to start us off, I'm going to show you a quick video all about pollution and ocean pollution specifically. And this will give you a nice overview. It'll also give us a bit of an overview of some of the things we're going to go into more detail later in the session.
Anything that does not naturally occur in the ocean that causes harm or is poisonous is marine pollution. Today, the range of things that are considered marine pollution is on the rise. Most marine pollution is rubbish or chemical and waste runoff that comes from land. Chemicals, particles, and waste from industrial and agricultural sources and houses make up 80% of marine pollution. One of the biggest sources of marine pollution is plastics. Now, not all plastics are small when they enter the ocean. The sun's UV rays help break down larger plastics. During this process, chemicals leak into the environment. As they degrade, large plastics become microplastics like you see here, which are broken down plastic particles that are 5 millimeters or smaller. Recent studies have now found plastic particles that are even tinier, called nanoplastic. Microplastics are found at the greatest depths in ocean trenches, 11 kilometers down, sited on mountains, in the air, and in our own bodies. They are found in all Earth environments. We still manufacture new products using plastics, while some natural materials have become more scarce and expensive. However, there is good news. People are more aware now than ever before of the impact of plastics on our environment. Some companies are using the plastics problem as an innovative design challenge to create new materials from natural or biodegradable sources to replace the plastic versions. Other businesses are recycling found rubbish back into other plastic products so that they get a second life. Now, the best means of prevention is to ensure that the plastic never gets to the ocean from land, to stop it at the source. Community groups and researchers stage targeted cleanup crews to clean beaches and fish waste out of the ocean. More strict policies for industry and agriculture processes help stop or slow excess waste entering waterways. More and improved sustainable products and packaging are becoming available for consumers to choose. Behind me in the water is the museum's sea. Sea bins are mounted to floating docks or wharves in heavily trafficked areas to maximize collection of rubbish. Most rubbish comes from land. Land is the source, so we like to try and stop it before it can work its way into the ocean. You can help keep the ocean and other waterways clean of plastics and other pollution. One of the great drivers of our industry is consumer demand. So demand more sustainable practices by making some choices in your own life. Opt out of single-use plastics, microbeads, and chemical fertilizers. Remember to reduce, reuse, and recycle. And if you can, participate in cleanups in your community.
All right, so one of the major contributors of ocean pollution is, of course, plastic. And plastic is really what we're going to be focusing on today in our session, all about ocean science, ocean pollution, and we're going to really focus in on plastic. Now I have a question for you guys. Do you use plastic every day? Have a think. And I'm going to pop this up as a poll. So do you use plastic every day? And if you're a homeschool student, pop your answer in. If you're a class, take a bit of a show of hands and see what the majority of students say. And once you've done that, I'd like you to pop in the chat, what are some of these plastic items that we use regularly? So pop in the chat once you've done that poll, what are some plastic items that we do use all the time? So have a think. If we think about the types of plastic we use, I've got a few. Oh, yeah. So we've got cling wrap. A lot of people use lots of cling wrap, plastic bags. Oh, this is a good one. Water bottles, chip packets, food wrappers. Oh, plastic cups, yeah. And that can be both disposable plastic cups that we throw away, and plastic cups that we will use a lot of times. Plastic cups that we can wash. Yep, your lunchbox is probably made of plastic, exactly. Well, here's a good one, pens. Most pens are made of plastic, and I'm sure a lot of us will use pens every day. Well, that's an interesting one, Lego. Lego that you play with is made of plastic. And a lot of our toys. Yeah, there can be lots of plastic in our computers, hand sanitizer bottles, gum wrappers, containers. Those are all brilliant answers. There are lots and lots and lots of things that we use plastic for practically every day. Chairs. Yep, the chair I'm sitting on is plastic. All right, so you guys get the sense here that we use lots and lots of things that are made of plastic. And sometimes there are other alternatives, like you could use a glass that's made of, well, a cup that's made of glass. But plastic is something that we use a lot. Now, my next question, so just a true or false, there's a speed round here. Plastic is very useful. What do you think? True or false? Plastic is very useful. We've just talked about all the things that we make plastic from. Yes, I think everyone can see that plastic is very, very useful. Yeah, and we've got 100%, every single person here knows and has kind of realizes plastic is really useful. We use it every day and we often don't even think about it. So what is plastic? Whoop. Plastic is made from oil, natural gas, coal, minerals, plants. There are lots of different types of plastic, and it is very useful stuff. It helps keep food and water fresh. It can be made into any shape. It is great for storing and carrying things. It's a good container. It lasts a long time. And that last one, it's cheap to make. It is very inexpensive to make things out of plastic. And that's why often things that we throw away, like containers for drinks, not only will it keep the drink, it'll keep, in this case, milk fresh. It'll allow you to transport it from the store to home, but it's really cheap. So it actually doesn't cost much for companies and manufacturers to make things out of plastic. So it is really, really useful stuff. Where did it come from? Sorry, I keep pressing twice. Where did it come from? It was actually first made in 1869. We've had plastic for over 150 years. And it was made to replace ivory from elephants. So it actually saved the lives of elephants. And it's being used as an electrical insulator to cover electrical wires. Production has drastically increased after World War II. And so really in the last sort of 50 or so years, we're seeing a drastic increase in the amount of stuff made from plastic. But plastic started getting noticed in our oceans as early as the 1960s. So all of this stuff made from plastic is ending up in our oceans. And this is where the problem lies. So it's okay to have stuff made from plastic, but when we throw it away and it ends up in our oceans, that's not where it's supposed to end up. And that's where the problem lies. So my next question for you is I'm going to play a video, and it's of some of this plastic that ends up in the ocean. In your classes, I want you to have a look and see what types of plastic you can see and pop that in the chat. So let's see what we can find. So this is just an example of some of the types of plastic that can end up in our waterways, our rivers, our harbours, our dams, our lakes, and eventually our oceans. So we had a few people who can see drinking straws, a lolly wrapper. Yep, there was plastic bags. Oh, yep, chip packet, bottles. Oh, the lid. Yeah, there's lots of old fishing rope and fishing nets. Lots of different types of materials there. And all of that stuff will never disappear. Plastic will never break down. Like if you got a sheet of paper and buried it, it would eventually disappear. It eventually gets broken down, but plastic doesn't do that. Instead, plastic breaks up. It breaks up into tiny little pieces. And these tiny little pieces are microplastics. And then eventually they get even tinier and they become nanoplastics. So we can't really tell what these plastics were anymore. They're broken up into tiny little pieces. But these pieces actually become a real big issue. Because you could imagine if you were a fish or a turtle or an animal swimming around in the ocean, how easy would it be to mistake some of these little bits and pieces for food, or to eat it by accident if it's in the water? So these tiny little bits of plastic actually end up in sea life, in sea animals. They end up in fish and things, and eventually they end up in us because we eat animals from the ocean. So plastic will never disappear. Plastic will just break up and will break down into lots and lots and lots and lots of tinier and tinier and tinier pieces. These ones we can see, but they get to be so small you can only see them with a microscope. So all of this stuff ends up in our waterways. And so what are we going to do about this? And I've already had one person pop in the chat there. I'd like you all to have a think, what can we do about this? Are there things that we could do to stop this plastic from ending up in our ocean? Once you've had a think, pop it in the chat, and we'll sort of, as a group, as a nice big group, we can kind of come up with some of these different ways that we can stop and prevent ocean plastic. Oh, lots of amazing answers coming through. I'll give you another moment to think. Yeah, and everything in this video that we're seeing is actually is being collected out of the ocean, being cleaned up out of the ocean. So what can we do? Let's go. Oh, I have to scroll all the way back up here. All right, so recycling. Recycling is one of the easiest things we can do to actually help try and stop some of this stuff ending up in our ocean. So if you do use something that you do have to buy something that's plastic or use something that's plastic, when you finish using it, you can either reuse it. So for example, I reuse a water bottle and I reuse this lots and lots and lots and lots of times. But eventually when I stop using it, I'm going to pop it in the recycling bin. And that means the plastic can get melted down and turned into something else. So we can reuse things that are made of plastic, reuse the same water bottle or the same lunchbox over and over again. We can also, once we're finished with it, make sure it goes in the recycling bin. But we also need to make sure that things don't end up just on the road or in the park. So if ever you're going for a walk or you see something maybe in the school playground, you can pick it up. So pick up plastic litter, Fiona's written there. Lots of people have said very much the same thing. So if ever we see any plastic or any rubbish, we can pick it up and make sure it goes in the bin or the recycling bin, depending on what it is. And that will stop things floating around, and the wind actually will pick up litter and it'll end up in parks and streams and rivers and stormwater drains, and all of that ends up in our ocean. So even if you're not necessarily right near the ocean, everything eventually finds its way to the ocean there. Oh, this is a good one. We can minimize the amount of plastic we use. So we can stop using as many plastic containers or things like that. So for example, if, we can stop using quite so many things that are made of plastic. Can stop buying things that are wrapped up in plastic in the supermarkets, things like that. Yeah, so this is an interesting idea. So we can collect plastic items before they go into the ocean. And someone else suggested doing cleanups. So whether you're going to a local beach or a park or your school playground or just walking along the street, if you see rubbish, pick it up and pop it in the bin. And there'll be special events that help us do that. So we can collect things before they go in the ocean. And someone here, Annalise, has even said you could go scuba diving and pick up plastic in the ocean. So yeah, definitely some people will organise cleanups of our waterways and actually go into the water and pick up the rubbish out of the water. And I'm going to show you an invention in a moment that actually does just that. Well, it doesn't scuba dive, but it does pick up plastic out of the ocean. Yeah, we can avoid taking plastic or additional rubbish to places like the beach or parks. So if you're going for a picnic, maybe decide to take reusable cutlery instead of plastic cutlery, or having your food in reusable containers rather than using cling wrap or plastic bags. These are such great answers, everyone. Yep, you can make inventions in the future. You can become inventors and create ways to help solve this problem. All right, so thank you guys so much. That was such a good brainstorm of all the different things that we can do. And there's even more. We can do what I'm doing today, and that is talking to other people. If you might know someone who, or something like that, you can also tell them about it, share the message, share all the things that you're learning today with the adults around you or with your friends so that they can also help. That's a great thing that we can all do. We can talk about this stuff. Maybe you could even do an artwork or write a song or a story or make a poster, all of these things that we can do. All right, one of the things that we do is in the world is people can invent things and create things. And I'm going to share a few things that are here at the museum in Sydney that actually help solve these problems. And it's similar to what Adam has just popped in there, an auto picking up rubbish robot machine. Thank you, Adam. And this invention is called the sea bin, and it kind of does that. So the sea bin is an invention that actually collects plastic out of the ocean, out of the harbours and places like that. And we've got 3 here at the museum now. I'm going to share a video that we made with someone who actually works for Seabin, telling us all about it. Let me play another quick video for you all about the Seabin.
Hey Matt,
Hey,
how's
Tom.
it going?
I'm good. How are you? Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome to the Australian National Maritime Museum.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Should we go down and have a look at the sea bin?
I'd love to. Wow, the sea bin. So, what's it do? Tell me more about it, Tom.
So it runs 24/7. It filters 16,000 litres of water every 24 hours. And as you can see, the water goes in the top and then it's filtered through the bottom of the unit. And what's left in the catch bag at the top is basically anything that's floating. So, yeah.
Are they only found kind of in the local area? Are they in Sydney Harbour, around the world?
Yeah, so we've just ticked over about 1,000 worldwide.
1,000?
Around
Did you say 1,000?
1,000,
wow.
Yeah. In around 37 countries.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of dotted all over the world.
Yep.
But the most condensed area is Sydney Harbour.
Yeah. We use plastic in our everyday life, drink bottles, toothbrushes, combs to comb our hair, pens we write with, and once we finish using them, we chuck them in the bin. So why do we need these sea bins in the ocean?
Well, we need them in the ocean because all of those items are ending up in the ocean. So our kind of argument, which we're kind of putting to government constantly, is if you have bins on land which are collecting all this rubbish, and we now have bins in the water which are also collecting the same amount of rubbish, then surely this sort of thing needs to be mandated by government. We need just as many bins as on land in the water.
Yeah. So every day you travel around Sydney Harbour and you collect the waste from the bins. How much is in every bin?
So the global average is around 3.6 kilograms, but I can definitely say in Sydney Harbour you could easily double or triple that.
Wow.
As you can see, we're in a very urban environment, high population.
Yeah.
CBD is right here.
Yeah.
So what happens when the land-based bins get full, especially commercial bins which are just out on the street?
Yeah.
Wind blows, rain, that rubbish flows into gutters, comes out of stormwater drains into the harbour.
Yeah.
These urban environments and these harbours which are high traffic on land and in the water is where we need lots of sea bins.
So you said 3.6 kilos of rubbish in every bin. Is that the case?
Yeah, so that's the global average.
Uh-huh.
But this unit, for example, would be averaging 5 or 6 kilograms a day. We have some units in the harbour averaging upwards of 20.
Yeah.
So there's organic matter included in that, like seaweed, but the seaweed works with us to kind of grab all the microplastics and bring them into the units.
Yeah.
But it's also, you know, things that weigh next to nothing, like soft plastics, plastic bottles, pens, as you mentioned.
Yeah. So you're talking a lot about data. So what's the data telling us?
So the data story in Sydney Harbour is pretty scary. We're being able to show that we're pulling out around 300 kilograms of marine litter every week out of Sydney Harbour, for example.
Wow.
It's also showing most common items, which are polystyrene, soft plastics. The microplastic problem in the harbour is huge. A microplastic is defined as a plastic item smaller than 5 millimetres. It's good when they're that size because you can see them, but the really scary ones are the ones that are tiny and microscopic, that then get eaten by the fish, then get eaten by the birds and kind of go up the food chain.
I would have thought you go to the bins, you take the rubbish out and you just chuck it in another bin and hopefully it doesn't come back out into the ocean, but you're actually really analysing it very closely to learn more about plastic and where it comes from.
Yeah, for sure, because the data allows us, as I said, to tell a story which kind of can't be disputed. It's facts on a page. We can share that data with governments all over the world and it makes sense to everyone. It's really that international language because cleanup's not going to solve the problem of rubbish in the water. It's going to have an impact and it's very important, but the prevention aspect, the removing of these single-use items from society is what is going to have the big impact.
Do you find that the types of plastic getting into the bins in different locations in the harbour is different?
In this area, for example, we tend to get a lot of parking tickets.
Interesting.
In sea bins. which are obviously made out of plastic first of all. And then we can look at stormwater drain maps, which are readily available to the public. And we can see how has this parking ticket arrived here from, say, Surrey Hills.
What can you do with that information to kind of stop that plastic getting into the ocean again?
So the data allows us to tell a story. We can share that story with the government and we can share it with the public. So we can empower the public and they can then lean on their local government, their council, and just be pioneers for the work that we're doing.
Yeah, and it's great work. It sounds like you're almost plastic detectives and you're kind of joining the pieces together, and once you've kind of figured out where it's all coming from, you can help come up with solutions that can benefit us all.
Yeah, that's totally plastic detectives. It's totally what it feels like some days. And for us, we're really passionate and it's really exciting and really fun because we have this issue, we have something floating in the water. Not only can we take it out, but we can also insert that into our data program and create this really valuable information which has never been gathered before. And the solutions are obvious. You know, if we're getting plastic parking tickets, let's stop making plastic parking tickets. Let's come up with another option. So should we see what's in it?
Yeah, let's go.
$3.5 kilograms.
Right on the mark, the average for the day.
Yeah, exactly.
The global average.
Yeah. We've got a plastic spoon. And all of these scary kind of little bits of plastic which have broken down into microplastics.
So thanks for coming today, Tom. It's been great learning more about the sea bin.
Yeah, thanks for having me and cheers for the chat.
Cool, no worries.
Hey, mate.
All right, so this is a sea bin actually working. Sorry, video, it's a bit laggy. And you can have a look at the stuff that it's capturing. The little white specks on the water are being pulled in by a pump that actually sucks the surface, just the top little bit of the water, less than a centimetre, the top surface of the water. All that floating plastic is then sucked in, and you can see there's some polystyrene there. There's a plastic ball, a toy, and there's a bottle in there as well. So we have lots and lots and lots of stuff caught in the sea bin there. So sea bins are an amazing invention. Since we made that video, there's been even more put in around Sydney and around the world. There's now over 30 in Sydney Harbour, and they collect huge amounts of pollution. Let me check my notes here. So worldwide, sea bins are collecting 3,600 kilos of plastic each day. So all of the sea bins around the world are collecting 3,600 kilos of plastic out of the water every single day. That's just incredible. They're catching, collecting all of this ocean pollution. It also catches things like seaweed, but the seaweed helps absorb all of the things like oil and detergents and things, and captures all these tiny little bits of microplastic. And here's an example of some of the stuff we've found in our sea bins. So you can see that's plastic. It's breaking apart into little smaller pieces, but it's still causing a massive issue for Sydney Harbour and for the ocean. So sea bin is a great way to try and intercept, to catch that ocean plastic once it's made it into the water, but before it goes out into the ocean. Another amazing thing we have here at the museum that's helping to solve this problem of ocean pollution is a project called Ghost Nets. And so this is where artists in the Torres Strait Islands, have a look after this session, find the Torres Strait Islands on a map Torres Strait Islander artists are going and they're taking all of that fishing net and fishing line and rope out of the ocean, that rope and fishing nets that can hurt animals and in some cases kill animals if they become entangled, like turtles. So they're taking that out of the ocean, they're helping clean up the oceans around their home, and they're then turning that into artworks that are beautiful and tell the stories of the ocean, share the beautiful ocean creatures and all the culture of that part of the world and where they live. And that also helps share their message. It helps educate and tell people all around Australia and the world all about why it's important to think about ocean pollution. And we actually have some of these beautiful ghost net sculptures in our foyer here at the museum. They're hanging up above your head when you come into the museum. And I've got a ghost net fish here as well. So artwork and education is one of the amazing things that we can also do to help, as well as inventing ways to clean up and everyone reducing the amount of plastic we use, making sure it ends up in the right place after we're finished with it. So I've given you a bit of an overview, but now's the time I want to hear what questions you guys have about plastic, ocean pollution, ocean sustainability, or ocean science. All right, and I do have one question. So if you've got questions, pop them in the Q&A box. And I do have a question that was popped in here a little earlier from Eric. So thank you, Eric. There is a plastic that can be made from milk and is safer and easier to make. Yes, so scientists are doing lots of incredible work making plastic out of different materials. So whether it's milk or different types of plants and things like that. And some of these brand new plastics actually can break down and disappear after we're finished with it. And you're right, can be a lot safer and easier. So scientists are working really hard to find alternatives to plastic that's made in the traditional way, from oil and the like. So being a scientist and learning, discovering these new materials is a great way that people around the world are helping to reduce the amount of plastic. All right. A question from Adam, which I'll only touch on, is how is plastic made? Plastic is made in lots and lots of different ways. There are lots and lots of different types of plastic. But one way that we can actually make things like bottles and things out of plastic is that they will actually make tiny little plastic beads called nurdles, and they then will ship that to the manufacturer, and the manufacturer will melt it down and turn it into a plastic bottle or a plastic container or a plastic toy. And funnily enough, those nurdles, that kind of basic material of plastic, they also end up in our ocean. So somewhere along the way, when things are getting manufactured and made, there's being stuff that's spilled out or lost or turns up into our water. But when we recycle plastic, they can actually take our old plastic, turn them back into nurdles, back into those little raw material type of plastic, and then melt them again and make them into a new object. All right. When was the sea bin originally made? Thank you, Annalise and Logan. So I'll just triple check my notes here. So the idea for the sea bin was two guys, Andrew and Peter, who were like boat builders, designers, surfer guys. They had the idea about 10 years ago, and they formally launched the sea bin company in 2015. So formally launched the company, then took a couple more years before they had a working, manufactured, mass-produced sea bin, and there's been several other versions and iterations. And so now the ones we have here at the museum are a little bit more high-tech, and they're actually now made from fully recyclable materials. So after the sea bins, if it gets to the end of their life, need to get replaced, all of the plastic in them can actually be recycled and turned into something else. All right, this is a question from Gemma. Have you noticed an increase in plastic waste since COVID-19, such as masks, rat tests, etc.? Are you finding them in the sea bins? So yes, we are seeing an increase in some types of plastic waste. So during COVID lockdowns, of course, there were less people going out and about to go out to have fast food or to go around the city in Sydney. So in some cases, there was a reduction in plastic waste in some areas. In areas around people's homes when they were going to parks and things, there might have been more plastic waste in those areas. But masks are something we definitely see lots and lots and lots of in our ocean. They're very light. They float around on the wind. The wind can blow them all around, and they end up in our ocean. So we're seeing lots and lots and lots of masks in our sea bins. I personally haven't seen a rat test, but I'm sure they end up there. So of course, anything we make out of plastic, we need to make sure it goes into the right bins to make sure that it doesn't end up in our parks or our rivers or our oceans. So here's a question from Millie. Is plastic made from fossil fuels? Yes, a lot of plastic is made from fossil fuels, from oil and the like. So that's most of our traditional plastic. Scientists are now inventing new ways to make plastics from other materials. And that's some of those eco-plastics that are actually now increasingly becoming a little bit more common. And we're able to, for example, wrap up a parcel in a package that's now compostable rather than a plastic bag that goes in the bin. So traditional plastics are made from fossil fuels, but scientists are working really hard to come up with other things to make plastic-like materials from, so that they can actually have less of an impact on our environment. All right, here's another question from Adam. How does plastic make its way into the ocean? Well, of course, sometimes people will just put stuff in the ocean, but a lot of it is by accident. Most plastic ends up in the ocean by accident. And it can be something as simple as if you pop it in, you think you pop it in the bin, but the wind comes and blows it out of the bin if it doesn't have a lid. That can then float around on the wind. It can end up on the road. And then it'll rain, and the rain will wash it into the stormwater drain, and the stormwater drain comes out into the ocean, into the harbour or the rivers. So stormwater is a huge way how plastic makes its way into the ocean. We also have wind, all of these different things that can actually cause and wash plastic into our ocean. Here's an interesting idea and an interesting question. Can they invent a rocket ship that sends plastic out into the universe where it won't harm anyone? That is a really interesting idea. And well, theoretically we could do it. It would be quite expensive, but it actually could potentially harm people in the future. When people in the future are traveling a lot more out into space, all of this, there is a whole lot of space rubbish, space junk in our atmosphere already from satellites and the like, and that can actually hurt satellites, and it could hurt potentially spaceships and people traveling into space. So interesting idea, but it's just moving the problem to a different problem that could potentially still hurt people.
Excellent.
Karen, so many good questions. Is there any other?
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for our final questions. If you do have more questions, I will be sharing some information after this session, so please feel free to reply to that with your questions, and I can pass them on to Megan to be answered. So don't worry if we haven't got to all of them. It was great to hear some of your really great solutions to the issues of oceans plastics, and really great to see how effective the sea beams are. So thank you all for joining us today, and for any teachers out there, you can still register for the teacher professional development, where we'll share some of these additional ideas about how to embed earth science and sustainability sustainability into your classroom. So a big thank you to Megan from Australian National Maritime Museum and to Geoscience Australia. And I look forward to seeing you again in one of our other sessions later on today. And we will share the recordings with you as well. So thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.